Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome to my channel. Today I will be very belatedly doing the Historathon book tag Ancient History, which I was tagged in, I believe, in March by both Brian at Bookish and Tom LA Books, and the original tag was created by the Rambling Raconteur, and I will leave a link down below to his original tag in the description box, as well as the links to all of the various channels which are hosting the Historathon Readathon, which is going throughout the entirety of 2023 and focusing on 4 major blocks of history. We are currently in the year 500 to 1500, so the Middle Ages to the very, very early Renaissance, and I will be doing, like, hopefully in the very near future, the books which I'm hoping to possibly read for this second half of the readathon. And if you can't tell, I'm wearing some kind of like ancient style or ancient inspired jewelry today, like, the raw turquoise, raw amethyst, and of course my beautiful new dichroic glass brass ear whites. I absolutely love these pieces of jewelry. I think they're my favorite pieces of jewelry which I currently own. And so anyway, let's just get down with it. Number 1, the Romans. What books, writers, genres are your bread and circus? Now, if you've been watching my channel at all or reading my main blog, you know I absolutely live and breathe historical fiction. It's the genre which I write myself, like, almost all the time. I do have a number of soft sci-fi books planned, or I started them a long time ago, but I just put them on indefinite hiatus. But I do hope to get back to them at some point in future, and I absolutely do love sci-fi. It's actually my secondary genre I love, which it's sort of like historical, because it's, obviously not the past, but it's not the present either. So it's like a world that's not our own, and I just love imagining just what might be in the future. I fell in love with sci-fi when I was in the 5th grade. I know it's kind of cliche. We were reading a book of short stories, like sci-fi stories meant for children, and the first one was by Isaac Asimov, and there was also another one later on in that book, and so that's how I got interested in sci-fi. But of course, historical will always be my number 1 genre, and and as I mentioned, I do write historical fiction myself. Primarily it's in the 20th century, but I've also been getting back into the 19th and the 18th centuries as well, and one of my current works in progress is an alternative history about Dante and Beatrice, and another kind of book genre writer, which is my bread and circus, of Russian literature. I absolutely love Russian literature. Sadly, almost all of my Russian novels are in storage 900 miles away. That's a long story, like, drama with my brother disowning me because we don't agree on politics. But anyway, I absolutely love Russian literature. I started reading it when I was 12, but became serious about it just around the time I turned 16 years old in late December of 1995. I would love to do some more videos talking about more in depth my love of Russian literature. One of the things I studied at university was Russian and East European studies. For many, many years, I wanted a PhD in Russian history with a focus on the Great Terror and Gulag. I know I'm such a pleasant, fun, lighthearted person. And another thing in this number 1 question that is my bread and circus, I love historical, scientific, and religious nonfiction. That's pretty much one of the things I almost entirely read when I'm not reading historical fiction or sometimes science fiction, because it's a natural extension of my love for history. And I'm also very, very interested in science, and also, of course, religion. My religious and personal family background is a really long story, but suffice it to say, I did a lot of research before deciding what religion I was going to be. And I know that's a long story. Maybe someday I'll tell that in future. But as a result of that, religious journey and being given the freedom to explore what religious path I wanted to take, I just looked into almost all world religions. And so even to this day, I still love reading about all sorts of religions, even long after I've settled into living a Jewish life. And I also absolutely love memoirs. That's, again, like an extension of historical and historical nonfiction. It's just basically all in a beautiful blend. And I'm sorry if I'm rambling. This video is basically pretty much almost entirely unscripted. Number 2, the Sumerians. What is a work you read many years ago but still appreciate? Now, for this one, there are so many books I did read many, many years ago and still absolutely love. That's just kind of my thing. I'm not the kind of person who's constantly changing lists of favorite writers or favorite books or favorite bands or such like that. And of course, since I was revisiting him last year for his 60th death anniversary, Hermann Hesse is my second favorite writer. And so I was reading not a bunch of his books. Unfortunately, all of his books, which I own, are in storage, again, 900 miles away. So the ones I did reread, I had to read through the library. But these were all new translations, which I hadn't read before. So it was kind of a new experience. And Demian is my absolute favorite book. I do have 3 videos on this book in my Hermann Hesse playlist, which is on my homepage if you go to my channel. And it's just such an absolutely beautiful book. And it has meant so many different things to me when I read it at the different stages throughout my life. At 14, it was just awakening me to a kind of world I had no idea existed. And I kind of even felt like I was actually there with Emile Sinclair, because I was frequently reading the book at night, like in the dark when I was supposed to be in bed. So it was kind of, I can't really explain what I felt like or what was happening. I just really felt like I was actually there with him, because I'm kind of like, not I wouldn't say like a paranormal experience. It just felt like I was like so connected to him, and just feel like it was just doing things with my mind to transport me into his own world. And of course, I'm the Mark of Cain. That's a really particularly special thing about the book. The Hermann Hesse posits a midrash, an interpretation of what's in the Bible beyond the straight text, saying the mark of Cain isn't really what it's like said to be in the straight text. It's just a mark of a nonconformist, someone special, someone who's not afraid to be different and stand out from the crowd. And of course, I totally relate to that. I've been different all my life, and I pretty much take pride in being different from the others. And the concept of Abraxas, a deity who's both he's half good and half evil, in the search for art and truth and friendship and duality. So many things about Hermann Hesse I love. So if you're interested, please check out my playlist I did on him, and I do hope to be adding some more videos about him in future. And I would also like to add, obviously, Demian is an adult book, and it was the first adult book which I read on my own, not because it was assigned for an English class, but for children/middle grade books, which I read many years ago, but still appreciate. I can't praise it enough. Judy Delton's Kitty series, I've mentioned in a number of previous videos. The most recent time, I believe, was in a video I did on Easter about how to write a pre-Vatican II/traditionalist Catholic in historical fiction. And the Kitty series, there are 4 books on it, and they're just so sweet and cute. They've held up so well when I revisited them as an adult. They read just as well as they did when I was a child. And also there were some things that stood out to me different. Like, for example, I had totally misinterpreted them back when I was reading them originally. For example, the Catholic Legion of Decency ratings on movies, I thought that was like the old-fashioned style of, RX, PG-13, PGG, whatever. No, that was just like a Catholic thing. And so just many things I absolutely love about that series. I just cannot recommend it enough. We're really, really highly encourage you guys to check it out. Number 3, The Shang. What is your favorite non-example to pillory? I hate The Book Thief. Just thinking about that book, it makes me angry. So angry, I even want to punch the narrator, the writer. It's just so smug. All these news flash spoilers throughout the book. I wasn't aware, moving foreshadowing includes outright giving away pivotal plot points and how the book ends, and then constantly throwing out vulgar, obscene German terms. Actual native German speakers have said, I'm not going to repeat them, obviously. I don't like using vulgar language. I know that makes me so old-fashioned, but anyway, native German speakers have said these terms constantly being bandied about, they are not used as terms of endearment between parents and children or lovers, friends, siblings. No, they're like the German equivalent of George Carlin's 7 dirty words you can't say on television. Like, for example, try calling your wife or your mother or your girlfriend the C word and say, oh, can I have a kiss, C word? And expect to be punched in the face. That's not a cute, funny moment. Just so many things about that book just really make me angry, and I cannot wait to tear it apart in a video, which is based on a blog post. And that blog post, which I wrote, I had submitted to Ink Pageant for inclusion. It's like an online repository of blog posts about books and writing and such, and they rejected it because it was too demeaning. Well, I don't care. I hate this book. Number 4, Early Basket Maker. Name an early work that points the way to later monuments. Now, I really, really did try hard to think outside of the box on this one and look at different examples of books, but I felt it kind of wouldn't really feel the same and be personal if I'm just, oh, I looked this up and oh, this has influenced this and that, when I haven't actually personally read that book, the original book itself, or the things it has inspired, or I'm just not familiar with any of them in general. So I had to go with the Aeneid. This isn't my copy, by the way. I've been indefinitely borrowing it from my father. I should really reread it at some point. I first read it in my AP English history class in 1997 in autumn. I kind of DNF'd it because it was kind of boring for me, but I managed to pass the test on it. And then towards the end of the year, in the spring of 98, when we had to return the books, obviously, because the year was ending, I finally went back and finished reading it, and I really started picking up for me when the battle scene started. It was really, really fun and exciting. It was so much different than it was. And so anyway, enough cannot be said about how much this work has inspired so much of the Western canon. For example, obviously the Divine Comedy is the number one inspiration of it. And of course, also The Fairy Queen by Edmund Spenser and John Milton's Paradise Lost and the 1572 great Portuguese national novel, or I guess poem, Os Luciadas, written by Luis de Camões. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing the name. And just like so many other things that has inspired throughout the years. And even when Dante first meets Virgil in Canto 1 of Inferno, he's like, oh, you are my master and author. I love you so much. I have searched your volumes long and hard. Like, help me now. This beast is pursuing me. I still know Canto 1 of Inferno by heart in the original medieval Florentine, Tuscan, Italian, backwards and forwards, all this time later. Number 5. The Babylonians. What book did you expect to be impenetrable, but found quite easy to sink into? I thought a while about this one, and I finally came up with the Odyssey. I didn't expect to like it as much as I did because I hadn't really liked the Iliad so much. The summer before my senior year of high school, my mother made me read the Iliad, but I just didn't get into it at all. It was so boring. Maybe it was just the translation, or at 17, I wasn't ready to read that kind of book yet, or I had no experience with epic poetry. And she assumed she wanted me to be prepared because in AP English, I would hopefully be reading the Iliad, but we never read the Iliad. We only read the Odyssey, and she was kind of surprised by that. But it was night and day compared to the Iliad. I loved the adventures, and just with Odysseus, Ulysses going around all these different islands on his way to get home, and it's influenced so much of Western literature, and it was just, so much more vibrant, I felt, actually, in the story, instead of, oh, there's a battle, oh, more people are getting killed, oh, this and that. But I'm so long overdue to go back and reread the Iliad now that I'm so much older than I was back then, and particularly because there are so many different translations now to choose from. The right translation makes a whole world of difference, so maybe I just wasn't reading the right translation, in addition to not being in the right frame of mind or point in life yet to like the book. Number 6, the Persians. How do you organize your bookshelves? You were looking at photographs of my bookshelves as they were when I still lived back home in Albany, New York. As you can see, I grouped my favorite writers together, Alexander Isayevich Solzhenitsyn and Hermann Hesse, and you can also see Ivan Sergeyevich Turgenev's books a little. I'm not showing every single picture, but those are the main ones which I liked and consulted most often. You can also see I put my Leon Uris books together along with my Holocaust books. I know it might seem totally depressing to some people and macabre, but that's just something I happen to read about a lot. And so I obviously have collected many, many books in that subject. These are mostly memoirs, but some of them are fiction, like, for example, The Key is Lost, which is obviously jumping out because of the big cover and letters on the spine by Ida Voss. That's very, very strongly based on her own experience of being a child and hiding with her sister. And the book on the far right by Eugene L. Pogani, In My Brother's Image, that was a former library book, which I bought. I think I bought it off Alibris. I had the honor of meeting him when he came to my campus, UMass, for a Shabbos dinner in, I think it was like maybe April of 2001, and he wrote this story about his father and his father's twin brother. And they were identical twins, and they took much different paths. The family was originally Jewish, but then, the author's father came back to Judaism, while the uncle, the identical twin, stayed a priest, and just all sorts of interesting twists and turns the family took. And you can also see I basically put a lot of my language books together, and some more like books about Russian literature and my Jewish religious books. And obviously some of the Hermann Wouk books I have are all grouped together, and some of the books on the lower shelf, they were kind of dumped on me by my ex. He just wanted to offload these books. I wasn't really particularly interested in them, but he just oh, here they are, have them. And as you can see from the shelves currently behind me, I'm not nearly as organized as I used to be when I still lived in Albany, but I do have my Dantean shelf behind me. I do hope to sometime in future have a bookshelf tour of that, and also on this shelf are my Jewish religious books currently in my physical possession. Unfortunately, most of them are, again, in storage 900 miles away, and I have a previous video talking about those books, and I do hopefully have some future videos planned talking about each of them in more detail, as well as talking about my Dantean bookshelf in detail, and the other bookshelves, which I do currently have. Unfortunately, there didn't seem to be a lot of people interacting with the previous video, so I thought, why should I bother continuing doing a bookshelf tour series if people just aren't watching or commenting on it? So just let me know down below if you really would be seriously interested in seeing that in future. Number 7, Isohango Bone of Middle Stone Age Central Africa. How does the length of a work affect your reading experience? The longer the better. I love a good doorstopper I can climb into and live in for a few weeks. Some books work perfectly at short lengths. For example, my second favorite writer, Hermann Hesse, he was absolutely the master at creating books that were perfect, just the way they were without feeling like rushed or anything was left out at all, of like 150, 200, like 320 pages. But that was how the story naturally unfolded. But I really dislike how many modern books seem to be short for the mere sake of being short. A book that's all of 300 pages, or more popularly these days, 288. What's up with that number? That is not a sweeping saga. Also, as someone who frequently, deliberately writes in saga length myself, I have developed a keen sense of when massive length is justified by the story, versus when it's just an overwritten hot mess, padded out with lots of fluff and clutter. I find it very depressing how so many modern writers and agents are obsessed with counting words and forcing stories into some arbitrary cutoff length instead of focusing on good storytelling. Some books need 900, 600, or 1,200 pages for their stories to be fully, properly told, sometimes even more, and split into separate volumes like I have done with some of my own books, while others, like Hermann Hesse's again, are perfect at only 150 or 230 pages. So many of these books with low word counts, for the sake of low word counts, feel rushed, without much room for real character development and a leisurely journey through life. I prefer quieter, slower-paced, character-driven books with a more episodic structure, instead of fast-paced, plot-centric, and racing from point A to point Z at breakneck speed, like bam, bam, bam. Not every single thing in a book absolutely needs to contribute to a plot. Sometimes a line, passage, scene, section, or chapter helps to build the setting and develop characters. An older friend of mine, I believe she's 15 years older than I am, I was telling her about one of my books, which was coming out, this particular one, Little Ragdoll, and she was so excited about it until she asked how many pages it was, and I said 700 or so, and she immediately changed her tune. Oh no, I won't read that. That's way too long. You've got to chop something out or just make it into a series or whatever. And she's just like, oh no, no one wants to read long books anymore. Like, seriously, I have never written my books for people with short attention spans. Like, if you legitimately cannot understand a book that it has to be over like 300 pages long, because, oh no, I just want it to be so fast and short and just like plot centric. I don't want to spend any time with these characters. Like, I'm not the writer for you, and I just don't understand. And it makes me really sad. So many writers are playing into this mindset, like they're laughing at themselves. Oh, I had a first draft, it was 180,000 words. That was so stupid of me. I could never have that published. Like, why would you not believe in your own work? Maybe all those words needed to be there, or maybe it was a little overwritten at some points, but the length still worked for the kind of story it was. I just really don't feel like all these modern books these days are really complete at all, like 300, 400 pages or whatever. I'm used to long books, particularly because I write historical, and when it's set over many years and has large ensemble cast, you kind of need to be long. 120,000 words is like the bare, like, standard minimum for historical fiction, like, and it frequently goes much longer. So, and I've talked to other people when I'm telling them about like agents these days and their little word count regulations. They're absolutely shocked. They say they love long books and would love to see more longer books, but these like agents think, oh, people don't want to do that anymore. It's the TikTok generation. They can't sit still, and it's just so many things like that. I just hate the short attention span generation. Number 8, the Huns. How do you read/pack books while traveling? I usually take them in my backpack, tote bag, or purse. I have really, really large purses most of the time, not these tiny little like handbag things like some women do. In the past, my mother often got really bent out of shape if she saw me trying to take too many books or CDs on a family trip, as though I had an entire suitcase. They were spilling out of my bag and not leaving room for anything else. Believe it or not, some of us believe in packing more than just a suitcase with a couple of changes of clothes when we go on vacation. That's like, how is taking a few extra books going to slow down everyone going to the airport or getting on the road and by a certain time? Like, seriously? Like, just some people they have different priorities than other people. Number 9, the Aurignacian culture. I hope I pronounced that correctly. What are your favorite pop culture references to ancient cultures? I had to really, really think long and hard about this because, I kind of pride myself on living under a rock. I don't keep up with modern pop culture at all. I almost never see any modern movies. I don't listen to any modern music anymore. I used to listen to the top 100 or the top 20, whatever countdown it was with Casey Kasem for many years. I just stopped around 2001. So I'm just not in touch with modern pop culture or celebrities at all. So I actually had to, look up on Wikipedia pop culture references to whatever ancient folklore or mythology or whatever. And for a while, I thought, oh, this is really cool when I saw Indian folklore, because obviously George Harrison had so many songs drawn on Hinduism and Indian references. But then I obviously thought longer about it. This isn't really references to ancient Indian culture so much as it's just Hinduism, which is a living, vibrant, breathing religion. So I obviously had to start looking again. And I don't know if this would be, I'm sorry if I'm talking too fast again. I'm still not 100% comfortable on camera. So I don't know if this would be kind of cheating because it's more of a plot element of a film instead of just referencing it in passing or whatever. But I thought of the classic 1932 Universal horror film, The Mummy, with the one and only Boris Karloff, and there's obviously an ancient Egyptian plot element in it with this guy who was buried alive, and now he's suddenly brought back to life in the 20th century, and he's trying to get this woman whom he believes is a reincarnation of his long-lost love, whom he was buried alive for the sake of, and he's trying to get her to come back with him in this long, elaborate plot he's come up with. I'm obviously not going to spoil too much if you haven't seen the film already, but I obviously do highly recommend that. Number 10, the Minoans. Establish trade routes and tag some booktubers. I guess if you haven't done this tag already, it's been around for a while, you can go ahead and tag yourself. I'm never 100% sure who exactly will be watching my videos and commenting, because I'm still, trying in process of building up my audience. So again, I really do welcome comments from you guys. I really do want to make more friends on booktube and authortube and have conversations. Thank you very much for watching all the way through to the end. Again, I really do like seeing comments from you guys. A comment means so much more to me than a like, because it lets me know someone wants to connect with me personally instead of just surfing through and liking a video, maybe even not watching all the way through to the end before just mindlessly hitting the like button. And if you enjoy content like that, please consider subscribing if you haven't already and hitting the notification bell. And I will see you guys again very soon. Thanks again for watching. Bye.